The Jerry Springer Show completely changed the talk show industry.
It was horrible.
It was vile.
It was brilliant.
And whether or not that's a good thing, well, that depends on who you ask. I have very early memories of the Jerry Springer Show. And that's probably terrible, to be honest. But I'm a 90s baby, and the show first aired in 1991. Now, I spent a lot of time with my great-grandparents when I was a child, and not too much on them. But they love this show. More specifically, my great-grandmother loved this show. In the morning, when I was eating my oatmeal and butter toast with sugar on top, it was the Brady Bunch.
Sure, Jan.
And at night, after I was already supposed to be asleep, it was Jerry Springer. I don't remember how old I was when I realized that the Jerry Springer Show was good trash TV, but I do have a very distinct memory of pretending to be asleep, but peeking just out of my arm so that I could hear and see the Jerry Springer Show while my great-grandparents were watching it in the middle of the night. And maybe that's the exact moment that my love for reality TV was born. And then, of course, it was reignited in 2006 with the first season of Flavor of Love. And then there were the sick days when I was finally old enough to stay home by myself from elementary and middle school, and I would fill my days with The Maury Show, The Jerry Springer Show, and Everest College commercials.
Do it right now.
So yeah, this show was very much a part of my childhood, and that exact reason is why my children are going to have access to nothing. Who knows what's out on the internet these days? I know what I was watching, and I didn't even have cable, so there is no telling what you can find on the internet. I think the argument can be made that seeing a lot of stuff like what you would see on the Jerry Springer Show as a young, impressionable child can make you kind of a violent person. There were a lot of fights on the show, and maybe it's going to glorify violence for you. And I can get behind that point. The same argument has been made several times over for violent video games and how that impacts children, particularly little boys.
If I thought for 1 second that my show would be hurtful to society, I wouldn't do it. It's a television show. It's a television show. We will all survive it.
But maybe I'm not the right one to ask, because I grew up playing Tekken, and I just told y'all how much I used to watch the Jerry Springer Show, and I've never been in a fight in my life. Hey y'all, it's Nae. Welcome back to my little corner of YouTube. This video will contain spoilers for Jerry Springer Fights Camera Action documentary on Netflix, so if you haven't seen it yet and you do not want spoilers, save this video and come back after you do. You are about to hear my thoughts on the documentary, but of course I want to hear yours, so feel free to drop your thoughts below if you do want to participate in the conversation, and give this video a like before you go, so I know you enjoyed it. If you want to keep the conversation going after this video, feel free to head on over to my Discord server. It's a place for us to chit chat outside of YouTube, and it's free, so why not? The link is in the description box. It feels so meta to be covering this documentary. I love covering documentaries. I love covering reality TV shows, and now I'm covering a documentary about a reality TV show. Jerry Springer truly did walk so that baddies and Jocelyn Hernandez could run. I've talked to a few people before about how I am a casual viewer of baddies and Jocelyn's Cabaret, but you'll never see me cover those shows or shows like that on my channel unless it was based on a documentary like this, and that's because I recognize how damaging shows like Baddies and Jocelyn's Cabaret and pretty much anything on the Zeus network is to not only the black community, not only women, but in particular, black women. I know that it depicts us in a negative light, but I am human and I am guilty of finding those shows and shows like that very entertaining. But I just can't bring myself to give it an even further platform by sensationalizing it even more and putting it on my YouTube channel. So while I don't judge anyone who does, and I'm definitely not judging people for watching, but you'll just never see me talk about it because I know that I shouldn't be watching it. I know that it's bad. It just has me in a hold, okay? It has me in a hold. And in reality, I think this guy explained it perfectly.
A guy punches a girl in the face, it gets huge ratings. We put a girl without clothes on the show. Everybody loses their mind. And it's like the worst and greatest thing that's ever happened, right? All you guys want to talk about is all that shit.
The Springer Show started off modest. In the beginning, Jerry was reconnecting people with their families. Oh, I haven't seen my mom in such and such time. He was bringing people together.
If you just joined us, this is our first show, and
we're putting together people who haven't seen each other for 35 years.
And he was a really wholesome guy. Now, this might be a hot take. Jerry Springer was basically the Mr. Rogers of talk shows. He wanted to, and he was trying to help people really fix the issues in their lives. But adults don't watch Mr. Rogers, and adults don't want Mr. Rogers. They want Mr. Drama. That sounded that hit way harder when I wrote it down, but it ain't hit this hard, but I'm gonna keep it in. And Richard Dominic was the drama king. He made a living off of writing sensationalized headlines for tabloids, newspapers, magazines, you know. He basically was making clickbait titles before clickbait was a thing. I think these days when most people think of clickbait, they think about a YouTube video where the title or the thumbnail promises something that you're not going to get in the video. But there's another type of clickbait, and that's the kind that does say something crazy in the title or the thumbnail, but when you click it, it actually is that thing versus just lying to you and being something else. I've been guilty of using clickbait before on my thumbnails. For example, in my Poor Things video, I think I put "Are men okay?" on the thumbnail, and I know that helped it get clicks because are men okay? But that's an example of clickbait that is eye-catching but actually delivers on the prompt, because Poor Things was basically about how men are not okay. Versus if I would have said something like, "I can't believe there are crazy clowns in this movie," and you click it and there are like no clowns in the movie. That would be clickbait. That's like lying to you. If you grew up in the 90s, early 2000s, pretty much any of that time period, then you know that daytime talk shows ran rampant. There was no shortage. From Jenny Jones to Oprah to Ricky Lake to Sally to Montel Williams, which I might have to do a whole other video on Montel Williams in relation to Sylvia Brown, because that story is actually insane. Sylvia Brown was diabolical. But basically what I'm saying is that the competition was high, and the Jerry Springer Show needed a reboot because they needed higher ratings. A regular old talk show just was not cutting it, and it was not separating him from the competition. He needed to get his ratings up, and Richard Dominic knew just how to get those ratings up because, again, he had came from the tabloid. He knew how to take people out of their mundane, everyday lives and basically put them in a universe that's like, that shit is crazy. Like, my life might be crazy, but did you see what they doing on that TV? Like, that's some crazy stuff right there. He knew how to entertain people. The Jerry Springer Show, as we all have come to know it, was really born after this one historic episode in which members of the KKK, yeah, that KKK, were invited on to, I guess, have a conversation with the groups of people who they didn't like. Black people, Jewish people, you see where I'm going. With tensions as high as that, there is no surprise that that episode broke out in an actual fist fight. And do you know what the ratings did when people started fighting on TV? Shot up.
Conflict on talk shows was usually internal. A mother and a son, a husband and a wife, you know, that kind of thing. But what Richard did was that he expanded that. So it would be like Klan members conflicting and, you know, black activists versus white activists. He moved the line.
Like, he could see the anger was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So the second they went on stage, like, that was it.
I thought I was watching live footage of the Capitol for a second. And they basically spent the rest of the show's run trying to recreate that feeling, trying to capture that moment.
That was the beginning of Richard saying, do not bring anything to me unless it is going to be interesting with the sound off.
This idea of taking people out of their boring lives and teleporting them into more exciting lives just on their TV screen, or something being interesting with the sound off, is really no different than people on Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube trying to get you to stop your scroll. They want you to see something so eye-catching, so mind-blowing with your sound off that you immediately stop what you're doing, click on that video, and watch it. Richard was getting people to stop changing the channel. And that is the goal of every single person who posts something online, whether they admit it or not. My goal is absolutely to get you to stop scrolling and click on my video. Once you do that, I hope you enjoy the video. I hope you love my personality and you want to stick around for that. But nothing inside the video matters at all if I can't first get you to click on the video. So you see the importance of getting someone to stop the scroll. It's no different with TV. A while back, I did commentary on the movie Nightcrawler, which is about a guy who would film different things happening and then bring it to news stations. I think this was in the 80s or 90s or something. And then they would give him money for it because it would be the hottest news of the day. And as he got more and more money, he started to capture crazier and crazier videos of crime happening, just crazy things that you would see on the news. And in the end, he ends up going to really, really far lengths to get the content that he needs. That movie is exactly the world that we live in now. If you're interested in that, I'll link it below. Audio quality is not going to be great on it because, like I said, I filmed it a while ago, but the content is good. Or the content might just be okay. And when I was watching this documentary and I was seeing how Richard Dominic was chasing these ratings, I was like, oh, he is the Nightcrawler of daytime TV. He's the Daycrawler. Because the higher those ratings went, the worse and worse Jerry Springer Show content got. And he was really serious about it, so much so that producers described him as sort of a tyrant.
As I would come to learn, the employees were under tremendous strain to deliver and to produce the goods, specifically for only Richard's approval.
Come on, tell your story, get it all out, but we're not going to help you.
Something that is interesting about pretty much every documentary that I've covered on my channel, there is always someone or a group of people who get too damn greedy and start pushing the bounds and pushing the limits until they push it over, and now there's this scandal or different scandals happening.
You were playing with people's psyche until you get a result.
I think for a show that does sensationalized content like Jerry Springer, getting an episode banned is kind of a rite of passage. My head immediately goes to the South Park Muhammad episode that had to get banned. It's literally wiped from the face of the earth unless you have a DVD box set or you're willing to go digging for it. You're not really gonna find that episode. And it's because the writers of South Park received death threats because they were depicting Muhammad in any sort of way. Like, the people who believe in Muhammad were like, you not about to show him like this. And they had to pull the episode because they were literally receiving death threats for it. So that's a banned episode. A little earlier in the video, I showed a clip of a man kissing a horse.
So you actually had a ceremony where you married this horse?
Yes.
You live with this horse?
Yes.
And
Sure.
you are having intimate relations with this horse?
Yeah.
This is pretty sick, isn't it?
I think you can put two and two together on why that episode was banned from Jerry Springer. I think one of the most surprising things about this documentary for me is that these episodes and these stories were real. Now, as a kid, I definitely thought that they were real. But as an adult, when I would think back on the Jerry Springer Show, I'm like, obviously those stories are fake. No one's that crazy. But it turns out that these stories were very much real. Some of the intensity was kind of egged on and hyped up by the producers, you know, go out there and say it this way and say it that way. But the stories were real. So much so that this lady was fired for accidentally bringing on a fake story to the show.
One guy took a punch at the other guy and clearly purposely just swiped right past his chin, and then the other guy went flying backwards as if he'd actually been hit when he had not been hit. And security knew, of course, so they're like, what the you know, and then Richard knew, and it was a disaster. I was in big trouble. I lost my job.
People were calling in with their real stories, seeking help with their real lives. And one of those people was Nancy Campbell Panitz.
Nan, what's going on?
Ralph and I are trying to restore our marriage, and this trailer trash won't leave us alone.
Her ex-husband, who was already a disgusting, abusive, alcoholic man, I guess didn't like that she could so easily walk away from him a second time.
The producers wanted them to get physical, make threats, and she wasn't about to do that.
He's telling you he doesn't want to be with you.
That's fine. Bye.
And he made her pay with that for her life in a beyond brutal way that I'm not going to repeat, just out of respect for her and her sons.
Rolf watched the entire show, getting drunk, and he was getting more agitated.
Do you think like he's playing you and maybe it's time for you to tell him it's...
I'm sure he is.
And why do you...
I think that is the thing that really pushed Rolf. Because at some point, he said to somebody in the bar, I'm gonna kill her.
You can watch the documentary. It's in there if you are interested in knowing a little bit more about her story, but that's all I'm really gonna say on it. Guests on the Jerry Springer Show were essentially treated as cattle. You're here for the show, and then you gotta go. I'm really in my rapper era.
It was, all right, back to the green room. You can grab your bags. Limo's waiting. Go home and hope it's over. And usually it was.
So although Jerry really did start off wanting to help people, by the time the show was at its height, he wasn't really helping anybody. It was purely about ratings. And look, I want to make sure that I'm not painting Jerry Springer as a saint or saying that he is faultless or blameless. Is faultless a word? Because his response to hearing about what happened to Nancy was gross.
Do you think the show had anything to do with it, or do you think it was pure coincidence?
Well, I can't comment further, you know. Okay. People happen to have been on the show, as I understand it, so. But I hope they get the killer. That's the main thing. The rest is just television. This is, you know.
Do you remember?
So we'll cooperate fully, but as I said, I can't comment further. Okay?
Do you remember those people at all?
No.
Are we responsible for months after they leave the show for everything that happens in their life? We're not. We're not responsible for that.
I don't mean to trivialize this. It was a very, very sad event, but it has nothing to do with the show.
And of course, he was the face of the show, so theoretically, he could have put a stop to it or not ran with that show, or he could have done a number of things to stop it from getting as crazy as it did. But be there no mistake, based on the information that was presented in this limited series, Richard Dominic was the one running the show for real. He just wasn't the one hosting the show. And as the face, Jerry just got dragged down with him. And maybe he was even intimidated by him and possibly just could have lost control of the show and how serious it had gotten, because it was pretty serious. Now, there is another story mentioned in this documentary, but I'm not even going to touch on it because it's truly sad, it's truly sick, and it's truly fucked up. Someone needs to be under the dirt that's under. It's my mom. Hello?
What you doing? Want to take a show?
No, I'm filming a YouTube video.
Oh, okay.
Say hi to YouTube.
Hi, YouTube. How are you? YouTube? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, they can hear you.
Okay. Love you. Good night.
All right, love you. Good night. Gotta love mom. You gotta love her. Someone needs to be under the dirt that's under the jail for the shit that was told at the end of this documentary. So I'm just gonna say, watch it at your own risk. It does really come out like the last 10 minutes of episode 2. The producer who was in charge of this segment had this to say about it.
It was like putting 2 barrels of a shotgun in my head and pulling the fucking trigger. That was the fucking end for me. I literally packed my shit into a truck and I was a no-show.
And that pretty much sums it up. I wanted to mention why I didn't bring it up in case someone sees this who also saw the documentary and thinks that I'm glossing over it. It's not that I'm glossing over it. 1, I don't even think I can talk about it on YouTube. 2, it's fucking sick. And like I said, somebody needs to be in jail, or somebodies need to be in jail, because I don't even understand how you would pitch or want to go on the show with a topic like this. I'm truly at a loss for words, and I was so grossed out when I heard it, and I'm grossed out now just thinking about it. And with that, I think we can just end the video. Was there a crumb on my face? We're gonna let it, listen, it's gonna happen sometimes, okay? Ooh, am I ash? No, I can't be on here ashy again. Not 2 videos in a row, child. Where's the lotion? I am gonna get up and get some lotion. I ain't gonna be out here down bad. Not going to be out here down bad. All right, gotta get those crevices. That's where they really be trying to play you, is in between the thumbs. Or the thumb and the pointer finger, I should say. Oh, that's why I look so blown out. I got both lights on. I usually don't have my room light on. I'm sitting there like, man, I look bright as hell. Ooh, sorry. That might cause the lighting to be slightly different, but that was driving me crazy that I was looking so bright. This battery is probably gonna, should I just change it now? Change it now, because it's, there we go. But you can have a type of clickbait, boring lives, and I was about to say transforming, and transferring, and translating, and teleporting.